Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our day 2 session of Manufactured Stone Veneer. Yesterday, in our first session, we talked about some of our current initiatives, and today we'll be talking about some of our future initiatives. So before we get started, we'd like to hear from one of our sponsors, MASA. All right. Well, we certainly want to thank MASA for their participation with us and thank them for supporting the conference, as well as the other sponsors. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I think most of you can see the list of sponsors below. They've been instrumental in allowing us to pull this together, so we want to be sure to give them our gratitude. A few housekeeping things that we want to touch base on. Our platform for these meetings is Adobe Connect. You can listen online, but your microphones will be muted. You can view the recordings and then, of course, participate at the end with a question and answer that you can put in the Q&A box and engage in the interactive components. So if you're having any difficulty, then reach out to Randy Hertzberg. Here's her contact information, and she can help you get through all the technical issues and everything and join us. So also need to let you all know that the session is being recorded, and by participating in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Housekeeping on some of our antitrust issues. Obviously, at all of our meetings, we discuss and go over our antitrust, and I think most of you are familiar with that. We also want to be sure that everybody conducts themselves in a professional manner and keep everybody else in mind and is courteous and thoughtful. So we know everybody does that, and we appreciate your complying with those requests. Again, here's a list of our event sponsors for 2022, and many of you, I'm sure, work with these companies. Please reach out to them, let them know how much we appreciate their support, and they have been, again, instrumental in allowing us to be able to pull this thing together along with the efforts of the staff. So reach out to them and give them your thanks. All right, let's take a minute and do a little bit of an overview on the meeting. Yesterday, as I mentioned, we covered our current initiatives, several things that we'll be touching base with. Also would mention that you can, in about a week or so, be able to get, if you missed yesterday's part of the conference, you can get that information at the community website in probably a week or so, or touch base with Gabrielle and she can give you the exact timing of that. Today we want to review the strategic plan and our 2021 work plan. We also are fortunate to have Chris Fisher, who will be joining us as a speaker to talk with us about the construction industry and the MSV outlook in the middle of the pandemic, and some of the things that he'll be sharing with us, I think will be very beneficial to all of us. So moving into the strategic plan review and the 2021 work plan, I'd like to introduce Nick Lang. Nick is VP of Business Development for the NCMA. Been with the association since 2006. He leads our education and resource development for the association and has managed the NCMA laboratory and is very involved on our behalf with the ASTM. He has a bachelor's degree from University of Pittsburgh and is a registered engineer in the state of Maryland. So Nick, with that, I will turn it over to you.
The plan future looks like for the manufactured stone market segment. So just a little bit of background, both NCMA as an association as well as the MSB market segment have strategic plans. NCMA's strategic plan was a 3-year plan, and 2020 is the last year within that plan window. Now for manufactured stone, the strategic plan was really last updated in 2015. And as you can see for here, it's really time for critical review and development of new plans overall. One of the things that we took into consideration during the development of these plans is that the association's goals are, and really kind of should be, relatively static and high level, as there's a lot of different things that the association is trying to cover. Each of our market segments, manufactured stone included, however, should have plans that are more focused, granular, and detailed, and identifying specific projects and specific initiatives that are really going to move the industry forward. And that's what the committee has been working on over the past several months. So since convention, the committee has been working to develop these strategic plans. A couple important points relative to this manufactured stone veneer market segment strategic plan. First of all, everything is still in draft. These plans have not yet been finalized. The committees have been working hard on them. They reviewed them during a series of conference calls about a month ago as we were getting ready for a lot of our mid-year event stuff. But nothing has yet been finalized. So if there's things in here that you have questions on or feedback for the committee that they can consider, now is a great time to be providing this stuff either to staff or to committee members so they can take that into consideration as they continue their work on that. The plans identify core focus areas for industry investment and industry efforts, in which we'll go over a lot of those. They also include tiered implementation levels, which we won't get into a lot of detail here, but really identify some of the areas where if the industry wanted to move further or faster or heavier in a certain direction, there are some targeted opportunities out there that could be considered. And we're going to talk at a relatively high level about the things that are included in the plan. However, each of the plans, each project that I kind of cover in this overview really has a very detailed plan with tasks and quarterly benchmarks that the committees will be able to use to make sure that we're moving forward in an appropriate way and to be considering that whether things are on track or off track. And finally, the plans are intended to be living documents. The MSD committee is going to be continually monitoring programs and initiatives and comparing them back to the benchmarks that were set, as well as also looking and making adjustments as necessary on both projects, the progress of projects, and also if there's evolving market needs that come up that really, we may not be aware of right now. And so even once these things are finalized and we start moving forward and working with them, they will continue to be updated continuously as things change and evolve. Now, in putting these plans together, we were really building on the quote that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so we solicited feedback and input from the membership and synthesized that into a draft strategic work plan to help guide NCMA's efforts over the next several years relative to manufactured stone veneer. In refining the details of the plan, we really kept a singular objective in the front of our mind, and that was that the collective goal of the market segment is to increase sales and grow market share. As such, we assessed existing projects and potential new projects critically through this lens of this collective goal. In some cases, we may be recommending that programs be discontinued because they're not helping to achieve that goal, as well as identify gaps and ways that we could try to fill those gaps or with programs that don't currently exist. And so that's how we look through everything that we're currently doing, everything that we'll be doing in the future in terms of trying to come up with a plan that will move the market segment forward. In addition, this work plan is organized with 4 different categories where we sort of compiled the different projects, both existing and new. The first on the top left is resources and implementation. These are activities such as research, software development, and building code advocacy. Top right is education and outreach. These are activities related to promotional efforts and targeted education for industry professionals, designers, and decision makers. Next, we have workforce development, and these are efforts to educate installers on manufactured stone veneer and improve the quality of installations. And then finally, on the bottom left, we have market share, which is investigating members' products in the construction industry and making sure that the industry remains viable. I'm going to dig now a little bit deeper into each of those categories and the projects that are concluded with each one relative to the manufactured stone market segment. So our first category is education and outreach. And like we just said before, these projects are those that are related to promotional efforts as well as targeted education for industry personnel, designers, and decision makers. Projects included in this category include online education. We currently maintain 1 module relative to manufactured stone veneer on NCMA's EDU online platform, and the primary goal of this platform, of what's contained within this plan, is to maintain that. We don't currently have plans for development of additional content, but that could be something that's considered in the future. We also have our technical inquiry response. This is the current NCMA service where staff can provide unofficial technical assistance to those that call or email. These calls or emails could come from members. A lot of times they come also from designers or inspectors, but it's a service that we're going to be continuing within this market segment plan. We also have seminars and webinars, and this is where NCMA staff is available to offer seminars and webinars on MSV content upon request. We charge reasonable fees for that. They can sometimes be sponsored by NCMA, but primarily they're sponsored by either a third party or a regional group or even a member, something that we would provide upon request. One of the big rocks within this strategic plan is the MSV Product Certification Program. This is the program that we have developed to recognize producer products that meet the ASTM standards and have established internal quality control programs. Our current efforts involve certifying products and maintaining a listing of those products on NCMA website, and we are quickly pivoting to external promotion of the program to audience such as architects, designers, specifiers, and home builders. I would say this is one of the primary areas of investment for the MSV market segment over the next several years, and a high focus of our MSV communication subcommittee. Additional efforts within this category include our membership communication. This includes our e-newsletter, social media, our annual report, email blasts, and other related activities, informing and engaging our association membership. This can also include things like letting you guys know of products and services that we have available that may be able to help you, as well as just general communications to let you know what the industry is, what the association is doing. And then finally, promotion. So primarily on the MSV side, our primary promotion activity, besides the product certification program, which you just talked about, is really working with Remodeling Magazine's Cost versus Value study, which is something that's provided a lot of good press for manufactured stone over the years, and something that we use to promote the benefits of manufactured stone in terms of a return on investment for home remodeling really throughout the year. We also will, this project also includes promotion of available resources such as our installation guide and other design and installation resources, and covers some of our overall general promotion activities as well. Now, there have been some gaps identified within this category. However, due to limitations on available resources, we don't have new initiatives that are necessarily currently going to be filling those gaps, but they're things that we will consider in the future. The first one is on education. There is limited education on manufactured stone veneer available for some audiences. And the primary ones that could potentially benefit include contractors, inspectors, both building inspectors and home inspectors, as well as distributors. Now, the primary focus of new education we'll talk about in a moment right now is for contractors and manufactured stone veneer installers. We'll talk about that a little bit more under workforce development. And then the other gap we identified is MSV system promotion. We do a lot of promotional activities, but we don't do ones that are truly promoting MSV over other cladding systems. We do targeted promotion such as the cost versus value study as well as available industry resources, but system promotion could be an area to invest further in the future. The next category focus area is resources and implementation. These projects are those that include development of our resources and maintaining those resources, industry research, building code advocacy, etc. Primary projects within this category include design and installation resources. This includes development and maintenance of resources for proper design and installation of MSV, including the flagship installation guide, NCMA's tech notes on MSV, and other resources as they become necessary. The other primary activity here is codes and standards. Partially, this is NCMA's global efforts to advocate for the industry and influence codes and standards that impact the use and application of member products. Primary efforts for MSV include maintaining the ASTM standards as well as working within the Masonry Society for the veneer provision overhaul that we heard a lot about from Jason Thompson yesterday. And finally, we also continue to monitor things within the International Code Council, or ICC, to protect the position of manufactured stone veneer in those forums as well. One identified gap, again, that we don't have a lot of immediate initiatives for, but something we will continue to monitor is advancement research. This would be research that would improve the understanding of MSV systems and protect their competitive position. Some topics that could be investigated in the future could include thermal efficiency, sound abatement, material and production issues, flame spread and fire resistance, and performance measurements in extreme events. The next category we have is workforce development, and this is another area where we have kind of one of the primary focus activities for manufactured stone veneer. Within workforce development overall, this includes our efforts to educate installers on manufactured stone veneer, primarily to improve the quality of such installation. We do have one project under this bucket for the time being, and that's the installer certification program. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but this is a program we are actively developing an education and certification program for individuals who are installing manufactured stone veneer. As we've discussed within the MSV committee, this is really a critical need for the marketplace. There's currently a gap in a lot of things that are going on relative to properly educating and certifying installers. And our current plan includes really finalizing development of the majority of the program in 2020, and then doing some pilots and hopefully a rollout in 2021 for this program itself. And so this is, again, if you look at primary investment areas, the product certification is one, the installer certification is kind of the other. Now, in terms of gaps, one gap is installer workforce growth. And so we don't have a lot of efforts looking at increasing the volume of MSV installers. Now, there's other partners out there that are doing some of those types of things that we might be able to coordinate with other partners tied more directly to the labor workforce. But for the time being, the focus of the market segment right now is on improving knowledge and improving installations, not necessarily so much as in terms of growing the actual volume of those in the workforce. And then our final bucket is market share. And, right now there really is not much in the way of efforts that the MSV market segment is primarily focusing on to measure market share. However, the one program we do have within this bucket is membership growth. This has been a primary objective of the MSV market segment for a number of years and continues to be something that everybody feels is very important. The overall success of a collective industry participation, involves growing the number of involved people, and so new members are needed to continue that industry growth, as well as to be able to also provide more resources for the industry to do its good work. And so the gap here is really market share measurement. It's not something that we have a current initiative on at the moment, but it's something that we could investigate in the future. So to kind of summarize real briefly, the core focus areas for the manufactured stone veneer market segment moving forward include our product certification program, also installer certification, development and deployment of that new program, promotion of our existing resources, focusing on completing the overhaul of the Masonry Society's 402, 602 requirements for veneers, and membership growth. So with that kind of summarizes the overall strategic plan and where it is right now. Again, I said it's a draft. The committee will continue to be working on this throughout the rest of the summer and the fall, and with goal of finalizing it a little bit later on this year. So questions and comments, be happy to field. Certainly if you have things that would come up that the committee should consider as they're working through all this, be sure to forward those to staff or to a committee member, and be happy to work through them as we work through to finalize this plan for the future. So with that, Bobby, we'll turn things back over to you.
Thanks, Nick. Great overview of what we've got going on in the future, with a lot of things coming to fruition here in the next year with the certification programs. So we encourage you, if you are not participating in the product certification, to consider that if you're a producer. And if you have any thoughts or comments on the installer certification program, any of the committee members would be more than willing to sit down and chat with you about what those options are and how we're putting that together. It is an ongoing, active program, and we're very excited about being able to get that finished and put in place, hopefully sometime in early 2021. So Nick, thanks for that. Appreciate all the insight. Would like to now take a moment to introduce our speaker for the day. His name is Chris Fisher. He is a managing partner of Ducker Frontier, which leads the North American commercial team and directs the firm's global building and construction practice. He has over 25 years of experience in market development and strategic planning, and has widened the scope of the Ducker Frontier's business development activities. He's got a strong foundation in industrial construction and technically oriented markets. He's an expert in services such as market strategy, M&A advisory, and growth planning. He holds a bachelor's degree in industrial business management from Purdue and a master's of business administration in international economics with a concentration in strategic concerns for industrial applications from Indiana University. Specific to the masonry products industry, Chris has supported the NCMA in prior engagements, as well as consulted across the brick, block, and stone industry for both building and hardscape applications. So Chris, we welcome you. We appreciate you taking time to spend with us, and look forward to your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby. It's good to be back with the NCMA group, and thanks again for having me. I think it's a very interesting time in the industry, of course, with COVID, but also a lot of the developments both happening before COVID as it relates to material changes, labor challenges, innovation, and on-the-wall development. So what I'd like to do today is one that's really most excited to understand is how the industry is adapting with COVID and what's the outlook post-COVID. And then we'll step into some specific areas of opportunities for MSV moving forward. So when we're asked by a lot of our clients and groups to really profile what's happening with COVID, we have three different levels that we need to fully understand in order to forecast the outcome. First, what's happening with before COVID struck, which is basically a construction industry that was performing well late into the cycle, experiencing a surge in activity even to the start of this year through January and February, primarily in residential and remodeling activity. However, during COVID, much of the industry was deemed essential and was able to work. Both distribution and site construction continued, yet new permits and starts were, of course, slow or stopped in some regions. And it was very uneven in terms of the state-by-state or municipality view of what construction could occur. However, backlog propped up much of the industry, and there was a lag effect across projects both started from a single-family development as well as multifamily and then longer-term non-residential construction. Post-COVID, though, is yet what we call another new norm will be established for the industry. We have major emphasis trends that are now more real in terms of digitalization of supply chain, different levels of construction cycles, hopefully new regulatory views and shorter regulatory cycles for permitting activity, and then also much more control and site level views and another financial situation in terms of funding different projects. But let's take a step back and let's see where things were leading into COVID. I think for many of you that have been in the industry for a while, coming into last year, 2019, many thought that was going to be the peak of construction, both for res and non-res. But actually, we saw good growth through 2019, and even heading into late last year in December, there was concern about hitting top of cycle. However, January, February, and March, in particular for residential construction, you see in the blue bars on the left, outperformed forecasts and actually started the year very strong. And that helped actually the construction industry overall with project backlog and support through March, April, and May in construction through the COVID period. However, non-residential, of course, has suffered from a starts perspective, and certain segments of non-res will continue to struggle through the year. It was already at top of cycle in performance for much of commercial and dealing with a lot of the retail fallout in total for construction. However, residential construction has rebounded quite well, which we'll dig into here in a few more slides. There are several winners and losers that we see coming through the construction and COVID period timeframe from about March till about even through July as we speak. Winners include a lot of outdoor living. You can imagine with being outside, being outdoors is much better during a COVID crisis, being social distancing. So a lot of homeowners, and there are a lot of times being spent improving outdoor living situations. A lot of landscaping and maintenance activity, also exterior remodeling as both price and supply was readily available as people look to fix up their homes either for sale or to nest and improve their homes. Also smaller budget remodelers, as you've seen many folks, including myself, who likes a good construction project during the COVID crisis, spent a lot of time in Depot, Lowe's, and Menards buying product and improving my house. But I think one of the key surprises that we saw was growth of multifamily construction as well as the growth of continued permits in rural and suburban living. And so fast forward to now August, we see a significant level of Tier 2 cities, suburban and rural growth in new construction, of course, existing home sales. Some of the losers or struggling areas of the construction industry are not too surprising, but of course, anything urban or high-rise or large-scale non-res construction for new starts, there was a large backlog, of course, that continued through, that was started late last year and into this year, that will continue. Retail and hospitality remains challenged. Retail coming into this, of course, but even more so. Anything that had high occupancy was challenged, both from a refurbishment, a lot of refurbishment and upgrade of interiors was going on, as well as exteriors, and that has definitely slowed and will continue to be challenged. Public and government spending, of course, has been impacted and will likely as well for the future. That's also a very good segment for large-scale structural, concrete, and masonry construction. So we'll have to look and see and watch that category in the future. Urban development is another area where we see being challenged. The mass exodus, of course, out of New York or out of Seattle or out of Chicago, as you see people moving to the suburbs or to more rural areas, working from home, and the future uneasy state of high-end or multi-high-rise office buildings. Commercial roofing, of course, a little bit, and then another loser or another sort of damaged segment is the less qualified home buyers. And this is something that we'll want to talk about as we think about the growth of residential construction in the future. One of the key questions we also often get asked is, how does this recession from a COVID perspective compare to the Great Recession back in 2008, 09, and 10? And here's an analysis that you see over time, all the way back to comparing 07 through the recession, the Great Recession, and compared to today's. And you'll see that the green lines are showing the current recessionary period, the COVID-based recessionary period. For single-family permits and starts, the darker green line is the starts, and the lighter green is permits. And the blue lines are the Great Recession, the previous recession. And here, it is important to see, and for those that are watching this closely, know that this recession is sort of helping the economy. Housing and construction is helping the economy in this recessionary period, whereas before, housing almost led into the recovery. And so this is a good indication that as participants in the manufactured stone veneer industry that see residential single family as a key application and wall area, we like to see good numbers here through a recessionary period, and likely will in the future. To emphasize this point further, we're often discussing what type of recovery that we will see. And so, of course, these two comparisons on the left-hand side is the 5-month Great Recession housing performance, which was a very severe trough, if you will, and the average 5-month performance for actual starts and permits was roughly a negative 14%. Fast forward to today, using the same 5-month period from February to June, we have a very different story. It's a tale of two housing performance recessionary levels, a plus 2% growth in permits and the change in housing starts in general. So a very different level of housing market in two different recessionary periods, and that's something, one, to take comfort in, but also to think about as you develop strategies and you work through your post-COVID planning session, because this is a different, housing is responding differently, and there's different opportunities than there were in prior recessionary periods. Also, not to leave out multifamily, it is important, especially as we think about stone veneer applications. Multifamily construction, of course, has been healthy through the last several years, and many have called it, expected a peak performance, but it does keep churning along quite well, and we believe as a forecast and consult to the industry, it likely will. It may not be large, high-end multifamily construction in urban centers, but it certainly will support mid-rise and low-rise construction of multifamily living, principally because we don't have a builder population that will be building and constructing homes less than $250,000 in the near future. So there's a tremendous market opportunity and a tremendous need in housing for entry-level homes, and multifamily, low-rise multifamily serves that segment very well. And that's an excellent application for mixed-use cladding and at least first-floor masonry veneer product applications. The other key point about multifamily starts is that in this recession, multifamily performed better than the past recession. It's also less spiky over time compared to single family. So this is an important segment not to ignore as we think about overall housing and housing and residential construction. So as a consultant industry, we do publish forecasts for our clients. We don't necessarily publish them across the board, but some of our forecasts here show both a base case and an upside. We did have a downside, but we actually removed it for the construction industry because it was performing so well through the crisis, unlike our other segments in automotive perhaps, or some materials and oil and gas. All scenarios do show a decline at different rates, but less severe than the previous recession, principally because of our great start to the year in 2020 and some of the activity and performance through the COVID period. However, we do believe that there is another, quote, shoe to drop a bit here as we come out of COVID crisis later in the year, both from a supply and a demand perspective. Builders and labor forces aren't ready to complete projects at the rate that they're used to. Also, we'll be addressing probably some lower level of affordable financial considerations for home buyers here in the coming months, and so that'll impact the housing market in total. But we believe a recovery is quickly around the corner in 2021, pending several developments, of course, hopefully with a vaccine or better therapeutics. We do have an election cycle coming up here in November, and overall economic development and funding support from the government. From a long-term perspective, we think a lot of times people are looking at the quarterly or monthly levels of housing activity. Every month there is new release data. Everyone's looking at mortgage applications and interest rates. But one of the things to keep in mind is that all of us that are in the masonry industry or work in the construction industry or serve the industry today is to recognize that as an industry for residential construction, we are still at a deficit in terms of the minimum housing requirements we need in this country based upon household formation, based upon migration, et cetera. And so this is a very important side to think about long-term opportunities and need, if not actual pent-up demand that exists for the housing market. And I think many of you have seen this, but in 2017 and recently we're working with Freddie Mac actually on affordable housing stimulus activity within Washington. There is still a level of pent-up demand and housing needs that's not being met by our residential construction industry overall. So there is a long-term play for great growth and great development in housing in the future based upon a lot of the fundamentals that exist. So it's an issue of when we can close that gap, not necessarily if, as long as we're pointed in the right direction. That gap also is seen across the United States, but in different ways. And so here's a good analysis for those of you that look at your markets by state level or by MSA. As a consultancy industry, we are constantly working with clients to define localized strategies for growth. And where we see the biggest gaps are, of course, in what we call the smile states. I'm sure some of you have heard that term before, but it's basically anything from the start of the Pacific Northwest down through California, through the Southwest, across to Texas, through Florida and the South Atlantic, and then up to Mid-Atlantic. Those are where the more severe areas of gap exist in terms of housing need. But it's not those only areas. There's other areas, of course, as well in the central part of the U.S. Most importantly, we're advising our clients, especially post-COVID, to consider what we call tier 2 cities or tier 3 cities, and really focus in on suburban and rural areas. That's where you'll see a lot of exterior remodeling occur, which is great for manufactured stone veneer, but also new levels of entry, step up, and some semi-custom home construction serving the suburban and rural markets or tier 2 markets. And so some of those markets that we list here to watch, of course, Nashville's always been recently been a great housing market. Raleigh and Triangle area has been very good. Parts of Denver and Phoenix, what thought were overbuilt, continue to chug along quite well, and others to watch as well. So, in total, as we think about the COVID implications for the future, there are 5 areas that I think are important for everyone that are in strategy or marketing or leadership construction industry. Is one, that our construction industry is going to be facing what we call back to basics, which is family health, protection, and security, and really domestic-driven spending. So products and services that will enforce that are going to be less luxury, but more essential and valuable and aesthetically pleasing. Second is digital. Digital will reign both from the supply chain, but also the end-to-end level of digital design to fulfillment and tracking. We have all sort of leaped over any concerns as it relates to digital procurement and digital acceptance. So that is here to stay and probably will not revert back. The retail industry. And adjust their homes. New layouts and longer cycles to be prepared for. So that's something with purposeful design construction, both by space as well as material choices. From a segment perspective, this is more residential, but we're going to see healthcare and warehouse and public works facility increase in the future. Less office and high occupant facilities or multi-high-rise facilities in urban areas. And then principally, as I just discussed, it's really the growth is going to be around non-urban areas, which should explode. It's already exploding outside of urban areas for existing home sales, and builders are rushing to those areas to snap up as much land as possible. And renting. The other area to think about is there are new developments that I'm sure many of you have tapped into that are single-family communities, but they're offered through a rental model versus an acquisition or asset acquisition model. That's something, that plus the traditional multifamily is something that we see continuing. Today's homeowners or the future homeowners of tomorrow may not have the best qualification characteristics. And while everything from their phone to their cars to their social media to their entertainment is now a monthly rental number that will attach and work into their home living situation as well. So that bodes well for more construction. It also bodes well for longer life materials and things that don't need to replace and things that are sturdy and strong with good aesthetics, and that certainly bodes well for the manufactured stone veneer industry. So let's take a few minutes and jump in and talk about decorative stone and the manufactured stone industry relative to cladding or cladding overall. And so although Nick mentioned that one of the key initiatives moving forward is to think about growth of market share for the MSV industry, knowing where market share is today is important. And so we've done some analysis and continue to track. As Bobby mentioned, we've worked with, of course, the MCMA before. We've worked across the brick industry. We've worked in various levels of natural materials and synthetic materials. And so we have a good grasp of what's happening and what's being shipped and what's being sold for the cladding industry, both residential and non-residential. And so here's an analysis that gives you going 2013 to 2019 in terms of the actual millions of square feet of newly installed cladding for residential primarily, some light commercials included. And the orange bar is the stone category, which is principally manufactured stone veneer, although there is some natural stone that may find its way and has found its way into the marketplace. However, in our cladding situation today, we have seen a resurgence in lap siding products, not just because of the advent of fiber cement and James Hardie's aggressive marketing, but principally because of labor issues, right? So brick as a product, as a masonry material has continued to lose over time, has resurged a little bit in custom and, of course, in non-residential. And stone has benefited a lot from its aesthetics with builders and consumers and has maintained its status quo. But really, some of the growth, especially across the entry-level home segment, has been around lap products and new lap products and colorations and textures that have been introduced. And so that's something when you think about market share gain, we have to think of, and growth, we have to think about against what category and within what segment. And so this gives you some level of assessment of where stone has been and where it's going. Just to draw down that point a little bit further, stone in some segments has gained share of the housing market, in others it's lost share. But on average, it has maintained share and thus has grown in several categories. However, it hasn't grown at the pace of vinyl or fiber cement or engineered wood, which is smart side. Other categories, other innovative products, wood products in general, and brick from a wall area perspective have declined. And so there is opportunity, especially as we talk about front-facing elevations, perimeter, half walls, accents, where manufactured stone veneer can grab share away from other materials and create a strong balance within the aesthetic of a home. One of the trends that we continue to watch and we continue to see, which we think favors stone as a masonry material and as a durable natural material, the pendulum will swing back with too many. When we see the trend in modern farmhouse that's all white with black windows and porches become too consistent or too similar in neighborhoods, we'll start to see the pendulum swing back, just like we saw it in kitchens, right? We'll see the same thing. And this is where stone has the ability to play a method of differentiation, increase aesthetic, and overall curb appeal through the mixed cladding strategy. Not to win all the wall area, but certainly to increase its share of wall area by being a diversified material for a diversified aesthetic. Same opportunities in non-residential and light commercial as well, in hospitality, in multifamily, where stone and natural stone and manufactured stone veneer can play a role. Outside of the wall, I think with the growth of some key segments and remodeling activity also create excellent opportunities for manufactured stone veneer growth, just based upon some of the trends and some of the feedback that we see from the marketplace consistently. Of course, anything related to outdoor living is going to be fantastic. And so on the right-hand side, you see outdoor opportunities for MSV, which include outdoor kitchens, outdoor fireplaces and fire pits, and a lot of vertical structures. And so whether it be we see the growth in, let's say, fencing to privacy to more divided outdoor living areas become an excellent way of using stone as a natural material and a transitionary level from an indoor fireplace to an outdoor fireplace and outdoor living areas. Additionally, interior applications, as again, we're getting very much sort of inundated with the same looks and aesthetics from all the HGTV shows and all the design trends. Stone is able to provide a very nice, unique and differentiated aesthetics with new colors, new textures, new lengths and heights and ways to install that give room for decorative wall accents, for islands and vertical structures on the inside of homes. And you can, one of the things that we just recently saw is a growth in interior renovation by folks coming out of urban multifamily into sort of old existing homes and trying to update them with modern finishes. And that includes a lot of stonework as well. So lastly, we see several key targets for manufactured stone veneer growth in a post-COVID construction world. As Nick mentioned, that's one of the key areas and really the key focus of the strategy is let's grow share and let's grow volume. And so from our perspective as a consultant to the industry and working with clients and associations to do so, develop these strategies, I wanted to provide sort of 8 areas of consideration. So the first one is, of course, exterior remodeling. And while it's not, new construction is second in terms of ranking, but really the first is exterior remodeling. The amount of existing home sales and stock that is turning over in the past 60 days is significant. And it's typically being bought out of urban areas, and these people are buying homes and they have capital assets to improve their homes, and exteriors are one of them. And so that's exterior remodeling packages are certainly a key area. Same thing with second homes or vacation homes. That growth is also staggering, and so there's lots of opportunity there to influence exterior remodeling. Of course, the second is entry, step up, new construction. That's where the volume is needed, and we'll see a lot of potential volume in the future. So what is the product segment fit there? And stone, of course, fits excellent within that market place as long as it meets a certain builder type or design and elevation type. Third is multifamily construction, as I mentioned before. There's also rehab applications and opportunities, especially when you look at urban or suburban and rural environments. A lot of recladding opportunities to dress up and to improve rental rates will be occurring. Outdoor living, as I just mentioned, is going to be key and going to be consistently strong, we believe, over the coming years in a post-COVID environment. Suburban and rural geographies. So when you think about growth vectors of strategies, we think of applications, we think of products, and then we think of geographies, right? So, of course, suburban and rural areas are going to be dominant, where we see them moving into those areas and updating, and so that's something to watch. And then also Tier 2 cities, as I mentioned, is an excellent area to focus. And a lot of times it hasn't received as much focus because everyone's been focusing on Dallas or Atlanta or Los Angeles. But when you start to focus on Tier 2 cities, you start to see a lot of great opportunities and some less price sensitivity in some cases, because now they're getting attention. The seventh level of growth vector is really around a route to market or a channel, which is digitalization. For you have strong digital strategies, continue to update and refine them. If you don't have a full digital implementation strategy, it's time to get one and build that quickly. So everything from design all the way to fulfillment is going to be critical. And then finally, modern designs. I think there is a need as the stone industry continues to evolve, become more popular. Of course, regional design trends and preferences are going to have to be taken into consideration, but we are moving toward a more modern design mix overall. And so things that are more clean-lined, much more modern influence, especially for that multifamily or remodeling or the entry step up and semi-custom home is needed. And those are some of the areas. So innovation in those product design dimensions is going to be key. So in total, we have a market in residential construction that is performed well through COVID. We will have a rough patch here coming up probably in the next 3 to 4 to 6 months. But the fundamentals for residential construction and home remodeling are very strong, and there's a backlog and pent-up demand that needs to be addressed. Stone and manufactured stone veneer continue to be a very strong aesthetic and preferred product, and there's share growth, of course, to capture when executing through a lot of these 8 levels of strategies that we've just discussed. With that, I'm happy to open it to a few more questions or discussions, or of course, there'll be information to follow up if any of you would like to talk further. I appreciate the time and wish you all the best in the post-COVID environment.
Thanks, Chris. That was terrific. A lot of great information. I'm sure a lot of people taking notes, just like I was. We do have time for a few questions. If you want to go to the chat box or Gabrielle, do we have some questions that we have already got canned?
Hi, Bobby. Let me see. Oh, there's something that just came in. The question is, what segment does assisted living facilities fall into?
So assisted living facilities falls into a non-residential, high occupant area and healthcare, right? And so there are, I would classify that as good growth potential because it's low rise, it's likely suburban and rural, and it's under the healthcare segment.
Gabrielle, any others?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, we're just about right on time, and once again, really appreciate everybody joining us. Chris, thanks again. Great insight. Again, all these slides and everything will be available in a week or so. Touch base with the NCMA to find out when, and they'll be available for everybody to download in probably a PDF form. Would also like to make a footnote about membership. Would like to encourage everybody who's on the phone call who knows manufacturers of manufactured stone, producers of manufactured stone that may not be members of our association. We would really encourage you to be in touch with them. Let them know about the resources and programs that we currently have going. They can certainly reach out to anybody on staff or anybody on the committee to get further information about it. But the growth of our industry is going to be strongly tied to the growth of the association and the resources that we have to delve into several of the strategic initiatives that Nick talked about. So we just encourage you to do that and help us grow the industry. So having said that, again, I want to say thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate our speakers joining us, taking time out of the busy schedule to be with us. And once more, make sure that you reach out to our sponsors and thank them for being part of this. And with that, Nick or Gabrielle, unless you have anything else, I think we will wrap it up. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've got just going on today, the rest of the day, we've got the Government Affairs 2020 starts at 3:15, and then the PAC reception at 4:30. And then tonight we have social networking hour, goes from 7 to 8, the beer tour, and then the happy hour. Not sure exactly what that is or what that looks like, but certainly encourage all of you to join us there. And that would be it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Bobby.
Bobby, this is Nick Lang. One thing on the social networking this evening. The beer tour did have a pre-registration, but even if you did not register ahead of time, everybody is still welcome for that social event. So you may not have gotten the shipment of the beer for the beer tour, but bring your own beer and come enjoy some networking and learning a little bit about beer and some other stuff with us from 7 to 9 Eastern. Even if you haven't registered ahead of time, it's open for any participants who want to join.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick, for the clarification. Anything else, Gabrielle?
No, that was the same comment I was going to make. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, and be safe and be healthy.